네, 미국 현지에서 30년이 넘게 트레이딩하신 버나드 케인과 함께하는 미국 주식 시간입니다. 그동안 소개해드렸던 종목들 수익률 베스트 톱5 화면으로 만나보시죠. 네, 버니와 함께하는 미국 주식 베스트 톱5 종목입니다. 더 트레이드 데스크가 빌닷컴을 제치고 1위 자리로 올라왔는데 오늘도 그 자리를 유지해주는 모습입니다. 어제 0.13% 소폭 상승하면서 현재 상승률 31.35% 기록하고 있고요. 빌닷컴 8월 10일에 방송된 종목입니다. 현재까지 수익률은 25.8% 기록하고 있습니다. 스노플레이크가 3위 자리에 있는데요. 이 중에서는 가장 최근에 알려진 종목입니다. 방송일 기준 종가가 $298인데 현재까지 상승률 20.9%고 어제도 1%가량 상승 마감했습니다. 네 번째 종목은 마이크로소프트고요. 방송일 종가 $300, 현재까지는 9.7% 기록하고 있습니다. 마지막으로 넷플릭스 $569였던 종가가 현재는 한 10% 가까이 상승하면서 8.3%의 수익률을 기록하고 있습니다. 네, 이렇게 수익률 좋은 종목들 살펴보고 돌아왔는데 과연 오늘 소개해드릴 종목 어떤 종목일까요? 지금 바로 질문해 보겠습니다. 자, 지금 최근에 한국에 디즈니플러스가 상륙을 했습니다. 디즈니플러스가 넷플릭스의 대항마다라는 그런 이름을 들으면서 좀 굉장히 많은 기대감을 실어왔는데 역시나 이 디즈니 하니까 또 콘텐츠가 정말 많았습니다. 지금 이 콘텐츠의 시대이기 때문에 앞으로 디즈니가 또 주가 기대 안 될 수가 없겠는데요. 이 티커명은 DIS를 가지고 있고요. 어제도 2.8% 넘게 상승했습니다. 저도 디즈니 영화나 애니메이션 정말 좋아하는데 앞으로 디즈니라는 기업에 대해서 좀 들어보고 싶습니다. 일단 어떤 전망 가지고 계시는가요?
Everybody loves Disney. I mean, with that name, it's like it's fun and it's great and they own everything we like. Okay? With a huge content library, a global parks and resorts empire, a rapidly growing streaming business. Walt Disney gives people a lot of ways to think that they can make money. It's just how much Disney is best understood as a long-term intellectual property play. So that's what I really think about it. I think about it as an IP play. It's able to monetize its content across the movie studios, the cable networks, the theme parks, the hotels, the global licensing operations. In this way, Disney turns its intellectual property, like Mickey Mouse's intellectual property, into profits. Disney streaming services, which include Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, give it another way to be able to cash in on its IP, as well as another growth driver. More than 100 million people have already subscribed to Disney Plus alone in little more than a year after its launch, and they thought they were only going to get 40 million in the first year. Disney now has a goal of 230 to 260 million total Disney Plus subscribers by 2024, and I think that seems achievable.
네, 앞으로도 구독자 수를 2억 6천 명까지 늘려갈 거다라는 목표를 가지고 있는데 그 목표를 도달하기에 충분한 가능성이 있어 보인다라고 말씀해 주셨습니다. 월트디즈니가 일회성인 소비 콘텐츠가 아니라 계속 좀 오래 소장하고 싶은 영구적인 콘텐츠를 또 생산하는 업체이기 때문에 더 안정적인 수익을 내지 않을까 싶은데 월트디즈니컴퍼니의 이 수입원과 그리고 잠재적인 가능성까지 짚어주시죠.
Well, and we got to be a little careful here. I sound so positive about Disney, but let's dive in deeper and think about what's really going on. Disney's got 4 revenue sources in order of revenue contribution. The media networks is the biggest, okay, and that's their ESPN, National Geographic, all their big ABC networks, all their big network companies. Then their subscriptions, Disney Plus, Hulu. Then their parks and their studio pictures, okay? So then their parks and their theme parks across the world. That's Walt Disney World down in Florida, Disney World in China, in the California and all that. And then finally, their smallest division is their studio pictures. It's got Walt Disney, it's got Lucasfilms, it's got Marvel Entertainment. They just bought 20th Century Fox. They bought Pixar. This is the smallest revenue sector with only 15% of the revenue. The biggest revenue source is the media networks. The big ones in this category are ESPN, National Geographic, ABC, Arts and Entertainment Networks. And if that's their biggest revenue segment, okay, we want to think about how much growth is going to be in that segment versus how much growth is going to be in the smaller segments. They make revenue a few different ways from their affiliate fees, from advertising fees, from distribution fees. We also have to think about that. But the number one way they make money is from their media networks. And then we want to think about, okay, what's the growth of that revenue from their media networks? The influence of their studios, their smallest division, impacts all of the other divisions, even though it's the smallest division. If Disney makes a hit movie and that movie makes $1 billion of it, okay, from the studio segment, that's great. But and that's revenue, not income. But there's going to be able to use those characters and that property in other properties to create all of their products in the subscription side, their parks. So let's say they have a new action hero person. Well, they can put that action hero person into the parks, that sort of thing. They can put that in to a subscription-based thing where all of a sudden you're seeing that face on a subscription. They can attach that to any of the different media network divisions within that segment. So there's tons of ways for Disney to make money. The thing that we got to think about, though, is where the growth is going to come from and how much revenue growth can we anticipate.
네, 디즈니가 영위하고 있는 사업 중에 또 테마파크를 꼽아주셨는데 저도 어렸을 때 디즈니의 테마파크를 간 기억이 있고요. 또 말씀해주신 마블이나 디즈니, 픽사 등등 어마어마한 규모의 스튜디오들을 가지고 있기 때문에 거기서 계속 안정적인 수익을 창출할 수가 있다라고 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 그리고 OTT 사업 등등 이런 신규 공급망 서비스도 굉장히 적극적인데 지금 월트 디즈니의 재무 편성 상태는 어떤가요?
Well, this is a big company, and how did it get to be such a big company? Sure, there's been internal growth and all that, but they also have made a ton of acquisitions. They have acquired Marvel Entertainment, they've acquired all the Star Wars properties, they acquired Pixar, they bought Pixar for $7 billion, et cetera, et cetera. Almost $78 billion is in goodwill, and that is the cost of being able to acquire those. So one way to think about goodwill is that's the cost of acquiring content by acquisition. That's when it shows up on the balance sheet, the book value of the acquisitions they have made. Now we've got to earn back that book value. That just shows you just how acquisitive they've been recently and all of the money they put in to acquire the content that they've acquired. But because Disney has so many ways to make money on a property, they have a competitive advantage there. Content to them is worth more potentially than it is to a competitor because they have so many ways to monetize it. When their analysts are doing a valuation of something that they want to buy, they might want to buy a discounted present value of this. I know it gets a little complicated, but they have more cash flow streams potentially from something that they acquire than a competitor might have when they bid on that same property. So they have more ways to generate money from that. So the value to them is going to be higher. But that means they can outbid a lot of people on that. Well, someone may come along and say, hey, look, I think I can make $2 billion off of this for them. And then I'm going to bid $1.5 billion because I want to make 500 million. That, you know, it's worth $2 billion to me. I bid $1.5 billion. I make 500 million theoretically. Disney looks at it and says, "Hey, great. It's probably worth $5 billion to me. So I can come in at $2.5 billion, which is more than the other guy thinks it's worth at all, and they can't do anything about that." Well, think about what Disney has paid for those acquisitions. They paid $7 billion for Pixar. They've gotten more than $7 billion in revenue from those toy stores. But it's revenue, it's not income. They paid $4 billion for Marvel Entertainment. How many superhero movies have they made? Enough to get $4 billion back. But these returns are revenue, as I keep saying, and not profits. It's hard for us to break down by profits for each of these acquisitions. And we'll think about that when we think about the value of the company. But they have to earn all that goodwill costs back, and that takes time unless these returns are compounded. So the stock price should reflect the speed of earnings of all the goodwill costs back, in my mind. Now, this is how we should think about how fast the stock price could appreciate. Don't forget, we want to think about, and I mentioned this before in other discussions with other companies, to me, revenue growth drives everything. If we can grow revenue really fast, that's great. We want to think about that. And then we want to be able to think about earnings growth second to that.